Hey guys, Philip here. I know it's been some time since I last posted on this channel. The reason for that is because I've been trying to develop a non-Winx related project for the past 4 years. I know, that's quite some time, but that's not exactly why you clicked on this video, so I'll leave the details about it for another time. Anyway, before we begin, I just want to leave a quick disclaimer. This video isn't meant to show any kind of hate or disregard for the original fanfic, as I've always appreciated these series for what they are. Any comment less positive that might come up is only meant as constructive criticism. With that in mind, please be sure to stop by Alex's channel to boost those views on our cafe. Without further ado, let's begin the video. Play the intro. As you're all aware, Arcanix was a fanfic created by none other than our beloved Alex, aka Alexesx3. The story features the Winx Club, as they find themselves in a dark dimension. The girls encounter creatures called nightmares, that manifest as their deepest fears and insecurities in order to steal their powers. Each of them has to either fight or be killed, and by fighting them, they end up gaining new powers. The main story itself dives into interesting themes that could have been greater if more time was given to develop its original concept. But as most of you might recall, the original series got banned from YouTube before Alex could even conclude the story. That event itself was what determined Alex to finish the project and conclude the Winx arc on Act 9. This decision itself was both good and bad for the series. The good being that Alex was now free to start her own story with completely new characters and new story setups, and the bad being that there were some plot points left to resolve on the original series. Some examples would be, how did the animals came from the castle if that's where Vera and her nightmares reside? Why was Bloom's nightmare mid-sea and not the Aspro? Why did Stella lost her memories when her bottle got shattered and Flora didn't? Who did the dark bottle belong to? Why did some nightmares thought they could become Arcanix fairies? And what the heck was Nut doing in the dungeons? Jokes aside, there were a few plot points that got me frustrated for a long time after the series' conclusion, and in hopes to improve the story and fix the issue with the Winx Club reboot, I attempted to rewrite the series back in 2021, hoping that I could animate it one day. Like that Bloom Arcanix video you liked so much.
Hey, Mitzi! Catch!
Unfortunately, that won't happen. But regardless, I'm making this video to share with you the scripts and unfinished footage from the Untold remaster of Winx Club, the Arcanix Act. Episode 1. Divine Powers. The episode opens with a shot of an ancient castle shrouded in mist. Inside one of the tallest towers, a faint light flickers near a window. The source? A mysterious woman cloaked in blue, who moves swiftly through the corridors, careful not to be seen. She reaches a large chamber, where she finds unconscious animals. A mouse, a salamander, a bunny, a squirrel, and a turtle. With a whispered spell, Midnight Dust, she breaks the darkness that cages them. As they awaken, the animals, still groggy, express their gratitude. The squirrel starts to introduce herself, but the woman interrupts, urging them to leave the castle before the nightmares discover their escape. Fear flashes in the animals' eyes, as they remember being captured as cubs. Sensing their fear, the woman reassures them that she'll protect them. Their escape is nearly foiled when a shadow creature appears, but the woman quickly casts a spell, reducing it to dust. She then reveals a hidden passage by pressing a loose tile on a wall. As growling echoes throughout the halls, she instructs the animals to find safety in the nearby woods while she holds them off. The animals slide down a chute and land in the castle's courtyard, immediately making a dash for the forest. But the land is bleak, with withered trees and lifeless plants making it hard to find shelter. Suddenly, the woman reappears, exhausted but determined. She tells the animals that 6 powerful fairies will soon be summoned, and they need to be prepared. They must learn everything they can about Arcanix to stop the queen from escaping. The animals nod in understanding and scatter into the woods, while the woman heads to the opposite direction. The little bunny looks back one last time, only to see a blue feather slowly drifting to the ground where the woman stood. We cut back inside the castle, this time in what appears to be a throne room, but instead of a throne, it had a giant mirror replacing it. Standing before the mirror was an imposing figure, an intimidating woman with sharp features and a sinister aura. From within the mirror, the faint but authoritative figure of another woman, the queen, emerges. The air crackles with tension as they converse. The intimidating woman expresses her frustration, her voice dripping with anger as she informs the queen of a recent failure. The animals, intended to be securely trapped, have managed to escape due to the incompetence of their minions. The queen, however, remains calm, her voice smooth and confident as she reassures the woman. She explains that the animals' escape was anticipated and that their fate is already sealed. Their primary concern should now be reaching the fairies before the animals do, and she expresses confidence in her nightmare shadows to accomplish this task. The intimidating woman smirks, her anger giving way to a twisted satisfaction as she agrees to the queen's commands. The conversation ends with the queen's declaration that preparations must begin immediately, a command that the woman acknowledges with a malevolent glint in her eyes. The scene shifts back to the dark forest, a place shrouded in cold mist. Among the twisted trees and dense fog, Stella lies unconscious on the forest floor. She awakens suddenly, shivering from the cold and confusion. Her thoughts race as she tries to make sense of her surroundings, realizing with growing fear that she is far from her comfortable bed. Stella calls out for her friends, her voice tinged with both irritation and fear. However, the oppressive fog swallows her words, offering no response. Frustration and anxiety grow as she struggles to understand her predicament, her attempts to transform into her fairy form failing miserably. The failure deepens her dread, and she sarcastically laments the frizz on her hair, an attempt to mask her rising panic. As she wanders through the forest, Stella's eyes catch a glimpse of movement, a small blue dove flitting through the mist. Initially startled, she quickly realizes that the bird seems out of place in this eerie environment. When the dove suddenly speaks, urging her to follow, Stella's surprise is evident. But with no other option, she hesitantly decides to trust the small creature. The dove leads Stella deeper into the forest, its path widening through the thick undergrowth. Despite her discomfort and the occasional complaint on the lack of appropriate footwear, Stella perseveres, drawn by the hope of finding answers. Eventually, she spots a figure in the distance, and relief washes over her. As she approaches, her relief turns to terror when she recognizes the figure as Cassandra, a figure from her past who once posed a great threat to her kingdom and Stella herself. The moment of recognition freezes Stella in her tracks. Cassandra, looking more twisted and malevolent than ever, greets her with a chilling familiarity. Stella, though initially shocked, quickly recovers her composure enough to exchange barbed remarks, attempting to mask her fear with sarcasm. The conversation takes a dark turn as Cassandra reveals her intent, revenge for past grievances, including Stella's interference in her ambitions for power. Tensions escalate quickly, and Cassandra, fueled by hatred, launches a magical attack. Stella narrowly evades the strike, her heart pounding with the realization of her situation. Despite her bravado, Stella soon finds herself outmatched. Cassandra taunts her, revealing that the forest's magic drains Stella's strength, rendering her fairy powers nearly useless. Desperation creeps in as Stella attempts to counterattack fail, her magic fizzling out against Cassandra's dark sorcery. Driven into hiding by Cassandra's relentless assault, Stella seeks refuge inside a hollow tree. There, she succumbs to her fears and despair, unable to fathom how she can escape this nightmare. As she struggles to hold back tears, a small blue light materializes in front of her, revealing itself as the familiar blue dove. The dove's presence brings a sense of calm to Stella's turbulent thoughts. It speaks to her again, urging her to confront her fears rather than flee from them. The bird reminds her of her true nature and the strength she draws from her loved ones, encouraging her to rise above her fear and tap into her dormant powers. The words resonate deeply with Stella, rekindling her resolve. She realizes that hiding is not the answer. Facing Cassandra is the only way to protect those she holds dear. With a newfound determination, Stella emerges from her hiding place and calls out to Cassandra, challenging her to a final showdown. Cassandra, eager to finish what she started, quickly finds her and unleashes a barrage of dark magic. Stella, though still struggling, fights back with every ounce of strength she can summon. The battle intensifies as Stella repeatedly attempts to summon her magic, each time growing more frustrated as her spells fail to manifest. Cassandra's confidence grows as she senses Stella's weakness, taunting her with the inevitability of her defeat. But as Cassandra threatens her friends, something shifts within Stella. The thought of losing those she loves illuminated a deep well of power within her, and with a desperate cry, she finally breaks through the magical suppression. In a brilliant flash, Stella transforms into her Arcanix form, her body now radiating with the pure celestial light of the shining sun. The transformation shocks Cassandra, who realizes too late that she has underestimated Stella's resolve. Empowered by her connection to the higher realms of magic, Stella counterattacks with a renewed ferocity, her spells now cutting through Cassandra's defenses with ease. The fight peaks with Stella summoning her most powerful spell, Arcanix Light, fueled by her Arcanix magic. The spell's radiance engulfs Cassandra, overwhelming her with its sheer intensity. As the light fades, Stella stands victorious, breathing heavily from the exertion, but filled with the sense of triumph. As the last remnants of Cassandra's shadowy form dissolve into the air, Stella collapses to the ground, exhausted but relieved. The blue dove reappears, congratulating her on overcoming her fears and mastering her new powers. The dove explains that the Cassandra she fought was not the real Cassandra, but a nightmare creature designed to prey on her deepest fears. This revelation brings a mix of relief and introspection to Stella, who realizes just how much she has grown. With the battle over, the dove bids Stella farewell, having its job complete. Stella, though grateful for the guidance, feels a twinge of sadness as she watches the bird disappear into the fog. Left alone in the quiet forest, Stella takes a moment to admire her new Arcanix form, marveling at its beauty and power. Determined to reunite with her friends, she rises and sets off into the woods, her spirit renewed and her purpose clear. As she flies into the misty night, the faint silhouette of the dove lingers in the background, a silent guardian watching over her journey. Episode 2 Burning from Within. Bloom wakes up on the forest floor, feeling the sting of grass beneath her. She looks around in confusion, unsure of where she is. She hears a call for help echoing through the woods, creating an eerie sense of claustrophobia as the tree seems to close in around her. Suddenly, a figure darts past her, fleeing from something. Bloom tries to follow, but has to slow down when she hears the sound of falling rocks. She soon discovers a deep rift, and looking over the edge, spots a small red salamander, Blaze, clinging onto a root. Bloom shouts out her name and tries to use her powers, only to find they're not working. Panicked, she grabs a nearby branch and extends it to Blaze, who grabs it just in time to pull him to safety. Blaze thanks Bloom and introduces himself. They both sense a magical connection between them, and Blaze hints that Bloom is not an ordinary fairy. Bloom, somewhat surprised, shared that she was once an ordinary girl, but has recently discovered her fairy and princess identity. Blaze reveals that he believes she is one of the fairies destined to restore the world's former glory. Bloom is skeptical, especially since her powers are currently unavailable. Blaze suggests that she needs to resolve a personal conflict to awaken her powers, but as Bloom reflects on her past and current life, nothing seems to come to mind. The fog in the forest thickens, making Bloom anxious. Blaze, frightened, warns her that it has found them. Bloom is confused and alarmed, only to be confronted by Mitzi, her school rival, who seems to have taken on a nightmarish form. Mitzi taunts Bloom, claiming that her fear is evident, and challenges her with her dark spells. Mitzi's powerful attack pins Bloom to the ground, leaving her unable to move. Mitzi mocks Bloom's cluelessness and warns that she will destroy her. Bloom tries to assert her bravery, but Mitzi's spell involves her in darkness. When Bloom opens her eyes again, Stella, Flora, Musa, Tecna, and Aisha appear in front of her. Bloom is confused, not realizing that this might be an illusion. She does her best to try to remember what happened before that moment, but to no avail. Tecna urges the group to get moving, as her device managed to find an energy source not far from them. But as Bloom's feeling of unease continued to prevail, she decides to oppose to the idea. The group gathers in front of her, eyes clouded with doubt and anger. Stella is the first to speak, her words sharp and accusing. She questions Bloom's leadership and judgment, blaming her from the dangerous path they've taken. Musa, who once shared an unspoken bond with Bloom, echoes the sentiment. Her voice, usually calm and supportive, is laced with disappointment. The rest of the group silently agrees, their body language betraying their unease. As Bloom listens, she feels a growing sense of isolation. Each word, each accusation pierces her confidence, making her doubt herself more and more. They speak of the risks they faced, the losses they've endured, and the uncertainty of their future. Bloom wants to defend herself, to explain that she's only ever wanted to protect them, but the weight of their disapproval leaves her speechless. In her mind, Bloom grapples with their words. She had always believed in her strength, in the fire within her, but now she's unsure. Maybe they're right. Maybe she's led them into danger without thinking it through. The fiery determination that usually defines her feels dimmed by the overwhelming guilt and self-doubt. Her illusions, still under the influence of Mitzi's dark magic, continue their accusations, and Bloom begins to feel more and more alienated. The camaraderie they once shared was slipping away. She reflects on her leadership, questioning if she was ever fit to guide them in the first place. As Stella and Musa's words become harsher, Bloom takes a step back, both physically and emotionally. She knows she can't respond in anger or defensiveness, but instead must face the truth within herself. She reflects on the choices she has made, the burden of responsibility she's carried, and how much she's been suppressing her vulnerabilities. In this quiet moment of introspection, Bloom begins to find clarity. She realizes that the true leadership isn't about being fearless or infallible. It's about embracing her flaws and learning from them. She knows she has made mistakes, but she also recognizes the strength in acknowledging them, like when she assaulted the Aspro unfairly. Mitzi gloats over Bloom's situation, but Bloom starts to regain her confidence. With this newfound understanding, Bloom refocuses. The fire within her reignites, not out of anger or frustration, but from a place of acceptance. She recognizes the nightmare for what it is and reassures herself of her true abilities and the trust her real friends have in her. With renewed determination, Bloom breaks the illusion and emerges from the dark spell. Blaze expresses his relief, confessing his fear for Bloom, and for a moment, Bloom allows herself to feel vulnerable, admitting she was afraid too. But nonetheless, she regains her composure, understanding that her friends will never see her as a shallow leader. Mitzi, seeing Bloom's return to reality, snarls in frustration. Her plan to break Bloom's spirit has failed, but she's not ready to give up. As she taunts Bloom, she launches another dark spell, this time summoning a powerful gust of wind that hurls Bloom towards the edge of a cliff. Bloom barely manages to catch the ledge, her body dangling over the dark abyss. Blaze, terrified, clings to her, and Bloom struggles to hold on. Mitzi, gloating from above, smirks, and she mocks Bloom's predicament. She believes that the fall will be Bloom's end, and once she's gone, nothing will stop her from getting what she wants. As Bloom hangs on for dear life, the weight of her situation feels suffocating. She's exhausted, her body weak, and her grip beginning to slip. Desperation fills her as Blaze pleads her to hold on. Bloom tries to reassure him, but she inevitably slips her hand after Mitzi's final strike, making them fall into what it feels like a bottomless pit. Mitzi's words echo in her mind, feeding into her insecurities once again. In the depths of her thoughts, she acknowledges the fear and doubt, but refuses to let it consume her. She remembers the fire within her, the same fire that had ignited in her when she first discovered her powers. The warmth of the dragon flame intensifying within her, the fiery glow begins to radiate outward, enveloping her in a protective cocoon of light, transforming her into an Arcanix fairy. Mitzi, sensing something has changed, unleashes a torrent of dark energy in an attempt to finish Bloom off, but this time, Bloom is ready. The flames within her flared to life, illuminating the entire rift. With a shout, Bloom ascends the cliff's edge, her transformation into her fairy form complete. The bright flames swirl around her, making the summoning of her new spell, Incandescent Dragon. Mitzi becomes desperate to regain control, but her efforts are to no avail, allowing the fire to extinguish her. Bloom lands safely with Blaze. They plan to find Bloom's friends as soon as possible in order to put a stop to these nightmare creatures. As they prepare to leave, a new dark magic attack targets Bloom. Stella arrives just in time to shield Bloom with her shield spell, Shining Orb. Bloom expresses her relief in seeing her best friend, who greets her with the observation that finding her wasn't easy since the dark atmosphere prevents them from flying too high. Suddenly, Musa comes out of the fog, leaving Bloom relieved to see another familiar face. She states that the previous dark spell was cast by a nightmare that she had just defeated. Bloom expresses her gratitude and asks how Musa found them, to which Musa reassures Bloom that she's there to help, though something about her presence seems off. Episode 3 White Nightmares. Inside the throne room of the castle, tension fills the air as the blonde, intimidating woman confronts the shadow creatures in the presence of the queen. Her frustration is palpable as she scolds them for the failure to capture the Arcanix powers, warning them of severe repercussions. The queen, with the sinister grin, emerges from the mirror, her silhouette barely visible. The intimidating woman bows deeply, acknowledging the queen's presence. The queen, with a cold and calculated demeanor, explains that her nightmares are aware of the consequences of failure, but may need additional motivation. The woman disagrees, suggesting that punishment might be warranted. The queen, however, chooses to offer the Shadow Nightmares another opportunity. She promises that any of them who successfully capture the Arcanix powers will be rewarded with the gift of life and the chance of becoming something more than a mere shadow. The nightmares respond with a mixture of anticipation and hunger for this new chance. The queen then gives a clear order. The nightmares must find the remaining fairies and bring their power bottles without fail. Once they leave, the queen turns her attention to the woman, who questions the efficiency of the new plan. The queen reveals her strategy, setting the nightmares up to fail, thereby ensuring they remain under her control, what would otherwise be impossible if they were to become living creatures. The queen also explains that her white nightmares, far stronger and more deceptive than the shadow nightmares, will use manipulation and deep emotional wounds to break the fairies. These nightmares can take on the form of loved ones, using this tactic to inflict maximum psychological torment. Back in the dense shadowed woods, the air is heavy with tension as the white nightmare, now disguised as Musa, lurks behind the thick bushes. Its movements are careful and deliberate, blending into the darkness as it watches Stella and Bloom from afar. High above the treetops, Arya crouches silently on a sturdy branch, hidden in the thick foliage. Her sharp eyes have been following the nightmare's every move for a while now. The unsettling aura of dark energy surrounding the fake Musa confirmed what she had feared all along. This was no ordinary fairy. The queen's voice, dripping with contempt, cuts through the silence. Fake Musa, though speaking with reverence, is clearly unsettled by the queen's presence. She reports that the Arcanix fairies of light and fire, Stella and Bloom, have been located, but before the imposter can continue, the queen dismisses the excess of information. A wave of fear washes over Arya as she realizes the gravity of the situation. The nightmare wasn't just spying, it was hunting, and worse, it intended to strike soon. She watches as the queen gives her final command, instructing the fake Musa to use dark energy bestowed upon her to lull the fairies into an eternal slumber. The nightmare obediently vows to fulfill her queen's command, her confidence in her ability to put Bloom and Stella to sleep quickly evident. The moment the queen's shadowy visage fades, Arya knows she has no time to lose. The urgency in her chest grows. She swiftly jumps from branch to branch, moving deeper into the forest. Her only thought is to find the real Musa. Every second counts, and the danger surrounding them is far greater than she anticipated. All she can hope is that Musa is still safe, and that she can warn her before it's too late. In a secluded part of the woods, the real Musa explores an old crumbling shrine. Her instincts telling her this place, despite its desolation, held some connection to her quest. Moving deeper into the shrine, Muse's eyes fell upon 3 statues that sat in the end of the room, weathered by time, stood as a silent testament to a lost era. At the base of the statues, faint inscriptions in a cryptic language caught her attention. Muse felt she had come across this language in her studies, but the years had faded her understanding. Frustration builds as she struggles to make sense of the partial phrase that seemed to honor the ancient keepers of magic. Yet, there was something about one of the statues that struck her more deeply. The figure's face, though worn, evoked a sense of familiarity, as if it were a face she had glimpsed in a history books or perhaps in her dreams. As Muse examined the statues further, a stone shifting against stone sound broke the eerie silence of the shrine. She tensed, realizing she was not alone. Slowly turning, she caught a glimpse of something small and furry, attempting to conceal itself in the shadows. After a tense pause, the small squirrel emerges from the darkness. Muse's initial surprise turned into what it felt like unconditional love, as a new magic connection formed between her and Arya, settling that they be now bound by a shared fate. Arya's sense of urgency reappeared. She quickly explains to Muse the danger her friends were in, and without a second thought, the two set off, running as fast as they could through the dense woods. The urgency in Arya's behavior became clear as it hurriedly motioned Muse to follow. They eventually came to an abrupt halt, and Arya, as if completing its part of the journey, stopped in its tracks, leaving Muse to continue alone. There was a moment of silent understanding before Muse pushed forward, knowing the responsibility now rested on her shoulders. Meanwhile, the White Nightmare disguised as Muse has located Bloom and Stella and enchanted them into a deep slumber. With a mocking sneer, she held the bottle containing their magical essence in her hands. It had almost been too easy, and now with their powers trapped, she prepared to eliminate the fairies for good. Muse arrives just in time, confronting and pushing it away from her friends before she can even have a clear look. The nightmare hissed in anger, quickly recovering from the fall. Yet as Muse attempted to summon her magic, she felt nothing. Her connection to her powers was gone, leaving her defenseless in the face of her doppelganger. Suddenly, the fog thickened, and the nightmare shifted. From the mist emerged a familiar figure, Muse's mother. The sight froze Muse in place, her mind staggering with disbelief. Muse is overwhelmed by the apparition of her mother, who explains that she had missed her daughter and has found a way for them to be together again, by giving her magic essence. Muse, overwhelmed with emotion, was almost ready to give in, to hand over her powers if it meant being with her mother again. The nightmare, sensing Muse's hesitation, presses its advantage. It begins to sing her a familiar song that her real mother used to sing. The song, though familiar, didn't align with the memories she held dear. It felt wrong, out of tune with the harmony she once knew. This was not the melody of her mother's love, but a twisted reflection of it, a lie crafted to exploit her vulnerability. But it was too late now. As Muse's eyes begin to weigh on her, she collapses on the ground, falling into the same slumber as her friends. Inside her mind, Muse was surrounded by darkness. She wanted to believe it was real, that the person before her, who wore her mother's face, was truly her. The idea of being reunited was so tempting that she surrendered, letting her guard down entirely. Then, out of the darkness, another voice reached out to her, a soft, genuine melody. Muse's eyes widened as she heard the gentle, loving tone she recognized it all too well. Her real mother was there, not as a manipulative vision, but as a guiding soul. She blinked, and suddenly, the dark void was illuminated by a warm, radiant light. Her mother's spirit appeared before her, a vision of kindness and beauty, far different from the twisted image the White Nightmare had shown. Muse, confused and torn, expressed her deep longing to stay with her mother, to hold on to this moment, but her mother's spirit, full of love and wisdom, reminded her that this was not the time. Her friends needed her. She needed to return. Her mother's words were gentle but firm. It wasn't easy for Muse to accept. She felt powerless, her magic stolen, her strength diminished. How could she face the nightmare now without her powers? But then, as if answering her unspoken question, Her mother and Aria, who had been guiding her from afar, reminded her of something she had forgotten. Her power wasn't gone, it was only waiting for her to reconnect with it. Her mother's spirit reminded her of the deep bond they shared through music. Music was her weapon, her source of strength. Musa's passion for music wasn't just a talent, it was her life force, the very essence of her magic. As her mother's spirit and Aria's encouraging words resonated with her, something began to shift. Musa closed her eyes and allowed herself to feel the music within her heart. The warmth of her mother's presence enveloped her, and Musa knew in that moment that she wasn't and would never be alone. The light surrounding Musa grew brighter as she rose into the air, her entire being enveloped in the powerful glow of her Arcanix form. Bloom, Stella, and Blaze, stirred from their enchanted slumber, looked on the awe as Musa's true strength revealed itself. The nightmare had underestimated her, believing it would break her spirit by exploiting her grief. But now Musa stood tall, her connection to music and to her mother stronger than ever. With her new strength, Musa faces the white nightmare. She no longer hesitated, she no longer doubted. The nightmare had tried to twist her mother's memory into something dark and manipulative, but Musa wouldn't allow it. Her voice, strong and confident, rang out, filled with the power of the music she and her mother had once shared, summoning her new Arcanix spell, Amplified Verse. The nightmare's twisted form faltered under the force of Musa's spell. It tried to fight back, but Musa wasn't shaken. Her real mother's song echoed with her, gliding through every note and every chord. Together, they created a symphony that overwhelmed the nightmare, shattering its illusion once and for all. With the nightmare vanquished, Musa celebrates her victory and shares a heartfelt moment with her fading mother's spirit. Musa expresses her gratitude, and her mother reassures her that she will always be with her in spirit. Bloom and Stella comfort Musa, celebrating her bravery and success. However, Musa realizes that Stella's power bottle is missing. Aria and Blaze express concern, noting that without all 6 fairies' powers, their mission to save this world is in jeopardy. The scene shifts to a small cabin near a cliffside, where another nightmare, disguised as Crystal, a fairy princess from Lanfia, stores Stella bottle in an underground dungeon. This nightmare reveals its intention to keep the stolen powers for itself, revealing Flora chained and unconscious as the scene fades out. And that concludes the first 3 episodes of the series. I know some of the changes were significantly different from the original, and that's because I wanted the girls and the secondary characters to interact more with their environment, as well as deepening their character development. The name changes, however, some were done to make the pronunciation easier and others to fit with the animals' abilities and personalities. My interpretation of the Arcanix powers for the series was more of a similar depiction of a spiritual awakening. The powers would still be related to dreams, but to unlock its magic, the wielder would have to face what they fear the most, in order to free their souls from all the blockages keeping them from moving forward. I'd like to take a moment now that we reached the end to apologize for spawning with this 30-minute video out of the blue. A lot has happened in my life since the pandemic that forced me to work on myself, my traumas and insecurities, to rediscover who I really was, and rewriting this fanfic was actually one of the first steps I took on that journey. But as therapeutic as it was, Arcanix doesn't belong to me, and I feel like I've done more than enough for its fandom. I mean, I made a whole game about it, for goodness sake. I've also sat on the idea of making this video many times, but I'm just a Virgo and I really dislike showing half-done stuff. But like I said, I'm working on improving myself, and that includes doing stuff primarily for me, my well-being, and my own happiness. If you made it this far and you're a recurrent watcher, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the endless support. And if you truly enjoyed this video and would like to see the remaining scripts, I'll be more than happy to share them with you sometime soon. This is Philip signing out, and I hope you all have a magical day. Bye bye!